Oh, yes, we get to hear you pronounce that goalkeeper's name.
Ugarkan Kacher. 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 Ugarkan Kacher.
I hope we sign him now. Just say we have to hear you try and pronounce his name every week.
Ugarkan Kacher. Yeah, we reached an agreement for him. Evening Chelsea fans, welcome back to another week of Chelsea Chat with me, Moose, and JB. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification, smash the like button, and drop us a comment. So this week we're going to go through the disaster of a week we've had as Chelsea fans. Crystal Palace game, that's what I'll leave it as, and then obviously the absolute dross that was Sheffield United yesterday. Obviously the transfer tracker, I know it's the segment everyone's been waiting for every week. You will hear the theme tune, don't worry. And then we'll look forward to Norwich and United and some of the news stories that are going to be important for Chelsea coming forward. So, JB, where do we want to start? It's not a great place to start, but where do you want to start?
Really isn't anywhere other to start than Palace, I think. Might as well do it chronologically. Doesn't really matter. Both were equally as bad. Actually, no, they weren't equally as bad.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was watching the Palace game and I think it's just frustration. There were so many good bits, but there were all equally so many bad bits about the game. The fact is, we should have killed the game off so early. And don't get me wrong, the Zaha goal was absolutely unreal. But we shouldn't be that easy to walk back into a game once we've almost killed it off.
No. I think the problem there was once we conceded that goal, they were just all over us after that. It gave them a bit of confidence. We kind of panicked and just dropped back, and all of a sudden they smelt blood and they were just killing us in midfield physically. And obviously with Gilmour in there, which, I mean, he didn't have a particularly bad game, but he's such a small bloke. So he was just getting completely bossed off the ball every time, as was Barkley and as was Mason Mount. So it really just, they overpowered us. And all of a sudden, as soon as that goal went in, we just literally dropped and fell apart. It was just horrendous.
Interesting points. You mentioned lineups. So I think you're 2 for 2 on picking the lineups at the moment.
No, I think I went for Jorginho over Gilmour in that one. I thought Jorginho might have been given the start, so I got that wrong. And then the Sheffield United game, I went for Giroud, but it was Abraham. So I got one wrong on both of them.
So let's go look at the lineups. I mean, if we look at the 4 defenders, we've said those are probably going to be our back four for the end of the season. Once again, there's question marks across the defence. We had, I mean, going forward, let's look at the positives here. Pulisic has been on fire. Absolutely different class. You can see moments of absolute brilliance, and Crystal Palace couldn't handle him when we were on our front foot.
His goal was just sublime. I mean, if it wasn't for that Zaha goal, that would have been clearly the best goal of the game. It was just an absolute screamer.
He's got that. I mean, I'm not going to sort of go and overstate it quite yet, because I think there's been many players who overstated so far, but he's got that a bit of a Hazard about him, but it's more direct than Hazard. Sometimes Hazard used to probably overdo it at certain points, but he's got that direct nature. For defenders, he's frightening. The footwork he brings and the ability to run at speed and have that control of the ball, I wouldn't want to be coming up against him at the moment. Willian had an excellent game again. You interestingly mentioned Gilmour. Don't get me wrong, I thought he had an absolutely outstanding game for Crystal Palace. I don't think he's quite there as a fully fledged Premier League centre midfielder, but and it is showing at the moment. Not having Kovacic and not having Kante is really hitting us hard, because when we played against Watford, you had Barkley and Mount just playing forward, had that freedom to go forward, and they're good at going forward. But on the back foot, they're not necessarily the midfield we need. And Gilmore's not been good enough from the Sheffield United game. Jorginho's definitely not been good enough. I'm surprised he's not put Loftus-Cheek in there. Now, I know he's not a natural central defensive midfielder, but just someone who can go and bully the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, without Kante, we really do struggle in there, because you can see Lampard wants to play with the two kind of number 10s two number 8s really, in Barkley and Mount. I don't think you can unless you have Kante in there, because as I've always said, Kante is like having two men playing there. Like, his work rate is incredible, and his defensive work is just unbelievable. He can stop the counter attacks, and he's like deceivingly strong for his size as well. So without him there, we really do struggle. And I think when he's not playing, you kind of have to play with two in the pivot instead. So if you're going to play, like, I don't want to jump forward to yesterday's game, but when you play Jorginho there, you kind of have to have a Kovacic next to him, because one of you can cover defensively whilst the other one is the playmaker, Jorginho kind of thing. But Kante can do both at the same time, but he's just that good.
Yeah.
So I think, if without Kante there, I think you kind of need two holding. And that as I said, we got overrun in midfield because of that. I think quite a few times we had Mount and Barkley not out of position, but a bit too far forwards, considering the fact that they were trying to come at us. So I think it kind of almost cost us the game, but it really gave us a panic in the end.
And do you know what I think it is at the moment? And we were talking around it. We've been talking around it all week, to be honest. But one of the things I find is, at the start of the season, people sort of didn't know what to expect from us, and were expecting a bit of probably an easy walkover. And we sort of turned up and really sort of changed their expectations, so they were unprepared on how to play for us. During that break, people have obviously wised up that we're actually a bit of a force to reckon with, and then I've realised that we've got some gaping holes in certain areas. So people want to play against us now.
I think, we were talking about this before, when people turn up to play against Man United, at the moment they're worried because Man United are just scoring goals for fun. They're really dangerous and they're playing well. So teams know, and that not many people are seeing what their weaknesses are. I mean, I think they do have defensive weaknesses, but teams are struggling to break that weakness. With us, we've shown so many times now that defensively we're awful. Set pieces we can be beaten. Defensively, the main problem is the physical strength. When we have a physical striker up against us, Christensen gets bullied too much. And so teams are not afraid to come and have a go at us. And it's given them that confidence, so they do come. It always looks to us like, teams just roll over for Man United. But what's actually happening is we've been so bad that teams feel more confident to have a go against us because they feel like they can get something out of the game. And it's our own fault for doing that, really. We've not addressed the issues, and it's now costing us later on.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The fact is, we seem to be playing worse against some of the smaller clubs because they typically lean on a big striker. You look at Antonio for West Ham. You look at, even to the point of Benteke, Crystal Palace, a player that hasn't played well against any club. We're just coming up against it time and time again. And players know that if we go and bully Christensen, you'll see him on the floor. He's not going to win a header. He's not doing that. You've got the physicality of Zuma, but Zuma's just not got that. He's just not being able to go and run the whole defence. And I think you've just seen a lack of maturity across the back four. I think it's with Zuma, he's got everything you need, just not the communication and the leadership abilities. He leads with the way he plays, but he doesn't again, I don't want to jump forward to yesterday's game, but Lampard after the game,
he said he couldn't even hear the Chelsea players because there was no communication going on whatsoever. And it's obviously something that he's picked up on. And that is what our problem is. There's no communication at the back. So people can just pull us from one side to the other and run us ragged. Like, there's just no cohesion at the back. And as we discussed last week, I don't know if the fact that he's changed that defence so many times is causing the problem. But I do think we lack a player that just grabs you by the scruff of the neck and pulls that defence together like John Terry used to do, like even Gary Cahill did, It's that's where we're struggling. Yeah.
It's that sort of, you look at Liverpool a couple of seasons ago and they were laughing stock because they could score for fun, but they couldn't defend for love nor money. And we're in the same position. We've got a great attacking and it's starting to come together. Obviously, Abraham's had a bit of a slow start since the back of COVID, but we've got a really interesting, quite sort of good sort of midfield, quite good sort of attacking, as long as we've got the right players in the place. So if you've got Kovacic, you've got Kante, we're all good. But for me, it's just a bit like defensively, we just don't know what we're doing. I mean, the only player I would keep in the team that week in, week out is Dave, because he's versatile to play centre-back, left-back, right-back. He might not have the legs that he used to, but he does the job. But having a good left-back or right-back doesn't win you a game. You need a great defence that just knows what they're doing. It's like
I think I would stick with Zuma, but I think you just need someone else in there that firstly is not necessarily equally as strong, because Zuma is a big, strong lad, but you need someone with a bit of strength and has that leadership and communication, like a Van Dijk. I'm not saying go out and get him, because obviously that's impossible, but like, we just need that one guy. I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, I feel actually quite bad for Kepa now, because it's starting to look more and more to me like he's not actually the problem. I mean, he could help by being a bit better in terms of, being a bit more commanding of the box, being a bit more strong and physical, coming for crosses, that kind of thing. He could help. But he's going to concede all these goals when you've got so many shots coming at you every game, because the defence is just not helping him at all.
No, I mean, we're not going to jump ahead to the Sheffield United game quite yet, but there were a number of times where those shots spilled and you'd expect your defence just to be on that, clearing the lines, rather than expecting your keeper to do that. Now, if we go back to sort of the Crystal Palace game itself, it was such a tense game. It was up and down, time and time again. I mean,
I thought I was going to have a heart attack, honestly. My nerves were completely gone. My nails, I chewed them down to the very bottom. It was in. We were 2-0 up.
Let's start with Agent Cahill to start with. I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel sorry for the lad.
Yeah.
Pulling up with an injury like that against your old club is probably not the best thing, but you got to give it to Giroud. Great goal.
Yeah,
a lot
of in the right place,
right time, and managed to finish it, which you just need. You just need someone to go and get that early goal, give us that confidence, and in the end, that goal counted towards getting us the 3 points. Pulisic, don't get me wrong, we've already said it, but absolutely outstanding goal. And I thought at that point, we're going to be on to sort of 4 or 5 goals here. And then just out of nowhere, that Zaha goal, outside the box, absolutely pinged it. Kepa should have done more, to be honest.
Yeah, he should have. On that one, it was not straight at him, but it was, just above his head. He can't. It almost looked like he dived out of the way. I don't think it's one that, every goalkeeper should be expected to save, but I think a top goalkeeper should save that.
And I know it was hit at power. Don't get me wrong, that pinged it from outside the box, but he should be doing a bit better than that. At least getting his hand to it. It almost looked like he was diving the complete wrong way. So I don't know what that was, but ignoring that fact, they got back into the game and they gave us a hard time the second half. Obviously, we took off Giroud, we took off Billy Gilmore and Ross Barkley. Ruben looked good, and we were getting some nice interplay between Ruben and Tammy. It was looking positive again. We got the third goal. And then that Benteke goal, just
seconds later, wasn't it? It was almost immediately after.
It literally was like, and I was like, where on earth has this come from? We'd literally just killed the game off here. They'd been pressing us back. We've killed the game off. We're 3-1 up. And from the Benteke goal onwards, which was, I think the Benteke goal was around 70 minutes, 71, 72. I was worried for the rest of the game. They looked like they had another goal in them, and we were really fortunate not to do that. And that shouldn't be like a club like Chelsea. At 2-0 up, that should be it. We should be able to make sure they're completely out of the game. It just wasn't good enough, to be honest.
No, it shouldn't have been that close. Like, no offense to Crystal Palace, but they've been bad. Like today they lost to Villa 2-0. Villa are, looking like they're probably going down, especially after, Leicester's result just now was finished as we're recording this. Bournemouth have just beaten Leicester 4-1. So that's, shows how bad really Villa are. And they've just turned over Crystal Palace. Like, we just struggled so hard. It wasn't good. That wasn't good. We got the 3 points, happy days, but it was not by any means as easy as it should have been.
Yeah, so we're now into, we got to third in that game, and the expectation is we've got a good run of games going forward. So on to the Sheffield United game. Coming off a win, we were shaky at best, but you feel the lads could have bounced back from that. You could have given the same effort they gave in the first half, and boy, did they just not turn up. I mean, you could have literally put on a team of reserves, and they probably would have played better. Just no one seemed to be able to do anything. And we were saying, I mean, the perfect stat that sums up yesterday's game is 76% possession and a 3-0 loss. With 76% possession, people were talking around how Sheffield United ran us ragged. And you're going, how on earth can you have so much possession and do so little with it?
It was true, though.
I'm not denying it. It's just the facts just don't line up.
When you look at it, I mean, what I took away from the game was Sheffield United played well. Chelsea passed it around their defence for 76% of the game. We just had nothing at all. Defensively, poor again. Surprise, surprise. Going forward this time, I mean, I don't want to blame everything on Abraham because he didn't really get that much service. But anytime the ball was up there, he was running in the wrong direction. As I said before, he was like Bambi on ice. He's making a run in one direction, someone's passing it in a different direction. Just there was no cohesion there. And I can't help but think that Giroud would have been a better choice to start. And
I've got a feeling
he would have done.
I think 3 games left for the end of the season, and I feel in that if I was Lampard and I was in Lampard's shoes, I'd start Tammy for the United game, because if we don't make it in the FA Cup, we don't make it in the FA Cup. I'd keep Giroud on for the remainder of the season. I feel having Timo been announced before the end of the season has properly put Tammy at a loose end. If you look at his performance before COVID, absolutely outstanding. Couldn't fault him. One of those strikers, he just writes himself into the starting 11. And you go, Giroud's a nice backup for him. And he just doesn't look the same. I
don't know if it's the contract situation that's kind of messing with his head a little bit. I was hearing some stuff that potentially his contract's now automatically renewed because he hit a certain landmark for goals or something like that. Which means, he gets a bit more money, but the contract has now extended for another year. Maybe that will start to resolve things. I don't know. There's all these, stuff coming out saying that he's asking for 150k a week. You can't pay him that, not after the way he's played recently. I think, he had a good start to the season. I think he's scored like 3 or 4 goals since November.
Yeah.
Which is not good enough. If he played like he did at the beginning of the season consistently throughout the season, then yeah, you could say he's a £150,000 a week player. Not having scored more than a few goals since November, I'm kind of starting to lose a bit of patience with him. Just the way he's playing at the moment, it's probably just a bit of bad form, and he needs a bit more confidence to come back through, and maybe a bit of, after pre-season come back next year, and he might have kind of picked himself up again. But the way he's playing now, I don't want to honestly see him start another game for the rest of the season. Not as like a punishment kind of thing, but just because I trust Giroud more to do us a job. Yeah, bring him on as an impact sub later in the game, fine. But he just needs to start Giroud for the rest of the season, 100%.
I've just brought him up here. So if I look at the 2019-2020 season, 14 goals. Now, that for me is not 150 grand a week player. He's a great player, but he's not 150 grand on that record.
No.
0.45 goals per game. It just doesn't seem
almost
to be
a goal every other game, which sounds good, but considering most of those were scored at the beginning of the season, he should have, pressed on from then. But instead, he's just taken a big step backwards, I think.
And he is our top goal scorer in the Premier League this season. But I think it shows when you've got a player who should be having this much impact consistently. And considering how well we played for Aston Villa last season. And don't get me wrong, not a lot of people were expecting much from him this season. There were even questions whether he'd stay this season. And I was really glad when he has. I feel that you can just tell that a big money signing that's coming in to compete with him has sort of shook his head. I don't know if you're going to see the same from his contract, negotiations, stuff like that. But I'm just worried that you've got a player with a lot of talent, just not doing what he needs to. And he's had a lot of seasons out on loan, some good, some bad. And he's just not hitting the heights that I want to for a player in a Chelsea shirt, to be honest. If we go back to the Sheffield United game, personally, Jorginho is awful. And he's not a player who can deputise for Kovacic and Kante. He cannot defend for love nor money. And we've already talked around our defensive woes. Christensen's not good enough, full stop. And we've spoken around this every week now. He's just not going to be able to make it as a Chelsea player.
He's fine when he's playing against, funnily enough, it's when he plays against the big teams, he's good because, look at the City game as an example. They had Bernardo Silva playing up front. He's not there to bully the defence, he's there to pass and move. Christensen can deal with that. He's good on the ground, but the second the ball comes in the air and you up against a big, strong bloke, he just falls to pieces. He's too weak. I would play him against United because they don't have a big, strong man up front to bully him about. So, Martial is probably stronger than him because, as I said, Christensen is weak, but it's not going to be as bad. So I think him that back four that we've been playing will be fine against United, probably against Norwich too, to be honest, because they've got Pukki. He's not a big, strong target man either. So I think in those kind of games, Christensen and Rudiger combined are a very good partnership. It's just when you come up against these big, strong strikers, especially two of them. Christensen had to deal with one of them. You can't rely on Zuma to deal with one big target man when they're playing two of them. He just got absolutely bullied. It was disgraceful. It really was.
It was disgraceful. And equally, Rudiger coming on halfway through the game didn't improve stuff. I think to your point, Rudiger equally hasn't got that leadership quality. He hasn't got that ability to command the back four. You just need someone who's got that strong presence. As you say, a Cahill, John Terry, the Virgil van Dijk-esque player who's just going to own that defence and tell them where to be. And once you've got that player, you could play Zuma, you could play Rudiger, and you'd have a great back four. But you can't play any of those because they're too immature. They've not got that maturity to do that yet. James didn't have a great game. I don't know, we're just talking around most of the players now. But
do you know what it is? I think going along with what you said before, I think teams have kind of started to suss us out a little bit that we like to play down the right-hand side. And obviously you've got Reece James there and Willian who can both put in a decent cross. So teams know if they just stop us playing down the right-hand sides and force us onto the left, you've got Azpilicueta who has to cut back to cross it in because he's not left-footed. And then you've got Pulisic who you don't tend to see him cross the ball. He dribbles and he tries to bring it in. So if they can stop us playing down that right, then it restricts us quite a lot. And that's why I think it's making Reece James look worse. I don't think he's actually played that badly.
He's put some great balls into the box. Don't get me wrong. I just think going back, he's been poor. I think sort of...
I'd say that goal on Saturday, I think that was more Willian that was kind of to blame because it was his man that put the ball in, and he just kind of got confused and didn't track him. To be honest, I think there's not a player on the pitch on Saturday that can't be blamed for something that happened, because, there was so many mistakes that led up to each goal. There was like almost every single goal, there was like a minimum of 2 or 3 mistakes. And everyone had a part to play in how poor we were. I mean, like the attack, it's hard to blame like the front three, but when they did have the chances and when they did have the opportunity to create something, they didn't. And you have to, in a game like that, when you're playing against such a defensively strong team, you have to be clinical when those chances come to you, and they didn't. Even Pulisic, like, again, he didn't really have too many opportunities to do anything, but when he did, he was just running into another player, and he didn't have options of what to do because no one around him was making the right runs. No one was helping him out at all. So it wasn't particularly his fault, but he didn't have a good game because the people around him didn't allow that to happen.
It's just, they had a better energy. We look so lackluster. And once again, we've been fortunate to retain third. I mean, I was fully expecting for us to drop to fourth and United catch us.
Well, they will. They obviously play tomorrow night. So, and when people are watching this, it'll be tonight. But I mean, United will probably beat Southampton, and we'll go down to fourth. But at least we're staying in the top 4. I think is the important thing. Yeah.
So as it currently stands, we're currently in third position with 60 points. Leicester on 59 points in fourth. I feel United are going to win. They're at the moment, they're not bottling it quite like Chelsea and Leicester are. The benefit we've got is Leicester potentially got quite a difficult run of games going forward, which will keep us there. And then we're going to talk in a bit around the potential news around the Man City ruling, which happens on Monday, that potentially allows fifth to get Champions League football. And that's a whole kettle of fish for us to sort of talk around there. But for me, I think the honest thing is we just weren't good enough in those games. For what you expect as a Chelsea fan, defensively, we weren't good enough, especially in the Sheffield United game, attacking and midfield. Just no one had that ability, and something's got to change. I mean, potentially we've got the Norwich game on Tuesday, and we'll do some updates around that. But we're going to have to head into that to try and build our confidence. You've got a team that's already been relegated. They've got nothing to play for, and we just need to go and hit 4 or 5 against them to just build that confidence into the City, United and Liverpool games, because for something that looking really positive in us keeping Champions League spot is now at risk, and it's almost who's going to drop more points, us or Leicester, rather than are we actually going to battle for it. And that still doesn't say that you couldn't see a Wolves come up and sort of sneak into 5th spot. So it's all to play for, to be honest. Now, on to everyone's favourite highlight of the week, to the transfer tracker. I'm intrigued this week. There's a few interesting ones on the list, a few new ones, because we've obviously been speaking around Kai Havertz. What are you thinking? There's potential.
I think as I said last week, I think it's actually come out in the news now that they're saying it's going to be dependent on if we get Champions League football. Come tomorrow, if they turn around and say that City have got their ban upheld, then I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of days later Havertz is officially announced. I'll be honest, the way I'm feeling after yesterday, I kind of think I don't really care about whether Havertz comes or not. We need a centre back, and that should be priority number 1, followed by a left back, and then we can sign a luxury player like Havertz.
90 million on Kai Havertz. After yesterday's sort of performance, I would rather spend 90 million elsewhere. Koulibaly, obvious.
If you're gonna go out and spend 90 million on the player, if you can't afford 2 of them, go and get Koulibaly. And our midfield, we've got a strong midfield anyway. Havertz is an unbelievable player, and our attack would be outrageous, but it's not going to do anything without a defence behind it that's not going to concede 50 goals in a season, which we already have done. That's what needs to be, that's what needs to be addressed first and foremost.
You look at sort of Liverpool 2 seasons ago. them just trying to outscore the opposition still didn't win them games. The City team of just trying to outscore, it has not been a great mentality. It's not been a great strategy for clubs. They've been able to build on it. They've been able to buy those sorts of players, but they've had absolutely awful seasons. They've still been challenging for Champions League without a good defence, because undoubtedly you'll turn up to a Champions League game and have an outstanding attacking against you and just get absolutely ripped apart, which loses everyone's confidence. I mean, if we look at Koulibaly, the amount of sort of clean sheets that he's got, he just comes with that air of someone who's going to walk into the club and just sort of
settle it all down.
And I'd be willing to go and sort of pay for that amount. I don't think I can have another season where I'm just watching this level of defensive incompetence. I think it's the only way of putting it.
I think the problem with Koulibaly would be trying to persuade him to join us over City, because I think City look quite interested in him. As I've also seen some rumours about Liverpool, which would be frightening. Van Dijk and Koulibaly at the back, no one is scoring a goal against you. So that's an issue. But the problem is, for that kind of player, there is not really anyone else out there that would be available. I mean, the other options that really I've kind of seen is Declan Rice, who he's not big. He's got the communication and the leadership side. I mean, he's their captain, or he plays as their captain when Noble's not there. The other one is Upamecano, who he's a young player. He's, I think, 21 years old, and he's not necessarily going to have that aura, that leadership and strength and communication, and he's not gonna bring that with him. So really, Koulibaly is the only one that you could go out and make a massive statement by bringing in at the back.
The other one I've heard is Pau Torres from Villarreal, 23-year-old. I just don't think he's necessarily going to come in. I think he'd be almost like a Laporte style player, where he's not necessarily the be-all and end-all. He's not going to be like transforming your back four, but a solid signing. But I don't think we need a solid signing. I think we need an outstanding signing in defence. Koulibaly is a great player, and I feel he just brings that defensive maturity. I just don't think you're going to get that from any other player who's out there on the market that hasn't already been bought. I mean, the issue I find is centre-backs used to be sort of to a penny. You used to be able to get a good centre-back anywhere for a really sort of reasonable amount. And now they are the most sort of the prized possession of any club. They recognise the defence. Yeah,
I think the problem is the way football is played nowadays. You need to be good with your feet. Like, you need to be a ball-playing central defender. You can't just be a big, strong, hoof it up there. If you're in the top clubs, like if you're playing for one of the bottom teams, then that's what you need. But for one of the top, to get into the top four, to challenge for a title, to challenge in the Champions League, you have to be able to play the ball. So there's so many more things you're looking for in a defender now than you used to. And that's why they're harder to find. You need someone who can play with their feet, but it's also big, strong, tough, good at communicating.
Yeah, it is much more difficult. Equally with goalkeepers, I think sort of where you've seen City, Liverpool, you're expecting pretty much every player on the pitch to be a ball-playing player.
I've seen that we've been linked with a new Turkish goalkeeper, Max. What's his name?
It's a very interesting one, that. Obviously, very well-known Turkish goalkeeper, Uğur Kagir. What are your thoughts on him, Jamie?
I didn't know he was Scottish, firstly.
Well, you've obviously not done your research like I have this week.
I've certainly not done my research. I've never heard of this goalkeeper before. But I've heard that he plays in a similar style to Oblak. So I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. But if he's anything like Oblak, then that's a very good. That would be a good signing. In terms of stature, I mean, the fact that no one's ever heard of him would suggest to me that he would be brought in to compete with Kepa as opposed to getting rid of Kepa.
I think, in all honesty, I think you're bringing him in as Willie's replacement rather than as a first team signing. Yeah. Willie's not young; he's 38 now. and we've literally milked him for his last season, I think. I still think there's an opportunity for us to go for Dean Henderson. The challenge I have there is he's not in the same league as an Alisson or an Edison. He's not going to be a ball-playing goalkeeper. That's what we're expecting Kepa to be. But I think Dean Henderson brings just a solid pair of hands, and you put him into goal. He is able to have great stop shots.
That's what we need. That's exactly what we need. I mean, even if we sign someone who's not great with their feet, as long as they can get the ball out of the net better than Kepa can, then great, let's do it. Because I'd much rather have someone that's, not great with their feet and keeps the ball out of the net, because that is their job. That's their primary job. You can always train up someone like a Henderson to, play a certain style of pass. How difficult really is it if you've got your centre-backs going to either side and you pass it to one of them? Like, it's not that difficult. If you've got someone steaming in and pressing you, pump it forward.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need someone who's
stuff right.
Yeah, you don't need Cristiano Ronaldo in goal doing step overs for you. You don't need that. You need someone that's going to stop the ball from going in the back of the net, and you need someone that can play a simple pass. Now, I think pretty much every goalkeeper in the world can do both of those things, except for maybe Kepa at the moment. But honestly, I don't see why it should be so important for us. I think most important thing is have someone that can stop the ball going in the back of the net. Simple.
And from my perspective, as you just said, we need to do the simple stuff right. Our defence is not mature enough to play the ball and play a stupid back pass and try and hit an amazing through ball. Just get the simple stuff right. We're not in the same league at the moment as a Man City or a Liverpool. And I don't think we're going to be for at least another season or two. Like, we need another season.
Make the right signings.
And I don't think we need to go and sign a goalkeeper who acts as a midfielder. We need just one who can make the stops and drive those through. The other one I'm just having a look at as we're going along here is a defender called Gabriel Magalhaes. Seems to be big on an Everton and Arsenal's radar. Could be also an alternative. And I know there's not a ton of them on the list at the moment, but he plays for Lille at the moment, Brazilian defender, which we've not had much luck on over the last couple of days.
I remember seeing him when we played Lille in the Champions League, and he does look good, actually. I was about to make a joke about the fact that if he's on Arsenal's radar, then we probably should give him a hard pass. But actually, I remember seeing him, and he does seem like quite a good defender. I haven't seen him a lot of him. Obviously, I've only seen him this season when we played them in the Champions League. But I mean, I do remember him looking quite good, as well as they had a midfielder, Boubakary Samari, who was really good as well.
At 22 years old, I take him. He's just one of those ones that, to be honest, what we don't need to sign is too many young defenders. We need a bit of maturity in defence. But if the
problem is, as I said, you've only got really Koulibaly as the only big outstanding candidate for that defence, and £90 million for a 29-year-old is a lot of money. But that is exactly what we need. If he was 25, he would be the perfect signing. It's just a problem that he's only probably got another 5-6 years maximum in him. So 90 million for that.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. So and we've spoken around some of obviously Kai Havertz, some interesting players there, and on the point of transfers. One of the points you mentioned here, obviously, with Kai Havertz, is us getting Champions League football. Now, we're doing our best not to be able to get Champions League football at the moment. But one of the big sort of talking points will be tomorrow. So Man City at the moment are currently going through a ruling that potentially will either give them Champions League football back, reduce their sentence, or uphold it. And it's interesting. We've heard mixed results. I think there is a real potential that the Court of Arbitration for Sports potentially will give City football back for Champions League, which would be a kick in the teeth for everyone in football, because although some of the stuff that was obtained in the league in the evidence is not, although it's a court, it's not a legal court. It's not a criminal court on which that can be inadmissible. This is basically City saying, yes, we know we did wrong over a 4-year period, but you've got to ignore that, and potentially that court's going to uphold that. And
yeah, I mean, I've just on Twitter, I've seen a lot of rumours to say that it's looking like that they're going to have it overturned. So completely. So not for one season, not for two, just completely overturned. Which, I mean, it might seem like I've got my Chelsea tinted glasses on by saying this, but I think it's completely ridiculous if they do. The evidence is there, and it's quite clear that they've been funneling money into the club from the owners. You're going to set a precedent at the end of the day, and teams like probably Chelsea, PSG, are going to think, well, if there's no punishment for breaking financial fair play, then why should we follow financial fair play? I don't think it would be right. But, money talks, and I think City will get themselves out of it, it looks like, and fourth place will still be what's needed for Champions League. And I've always said we can't rely on that fifth place, and no one, I think everyone's been looking at it the same way, just you can't rely on fifth to do it for you. But we'll know. The positive thing is we'll know tomorrow morning. I think they said 9:00 it's going to be released, the final verdict. So tomorrow morning, probably around the time that this video is actually released, we'll know.
And we'll be talking around it on Instagram and other areas around what our thoughts are around this before next week's catch up. But from my perspective, there's two parts to me in this. One, as just sort of a fan, it was an absolute outrage to see City being put back into this. Considering Chelsea, we were punished for a whole year around our transfer embargo. That was upheld. We appealed that. We managed to get the appeal knocked off at half a transfer window, which we didn't use anyway. But for me, as a fan who's actually had that inability to sign a player, and our season could have gone very differently, for better, for worse, if we'd had that opportunity to sign players in last summer. To watch a club like City therefore get the ability to play that would be absolutely ridiculous. And then secondly, as a fan, watching this and looking at our own form, the potential of United and Leicester pipping us to a Champions League spot after battling so hard all season and no one expecting us to get it, would just be a real gut punch, I think. But we'll see. And as I said, look out for us on social media, and we'll be adding our 2 pence just before we get to sort of next week's catch-up, which I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk around there. So looking forward to next week. We've got Norwich and United.
Certainly not looking forward to United at all.
Norwich on the 14th, another big game in our sort of fixture list for the Premier League, third and fourth spot. Norwich officially relegated. So there's nothing really to play for them, bar...
There's also no fear anymore, nothing hovering over them. They can play with freedom and not confidence, but they can just go out there and have fun, really. Let's be honest.
And there's a lot of players you'll be looking for Premier League clubs to come in and keep them into next season, whether it's
absolutely
a Leeds or someone from the Championship coming up who have got a year's Premier League experience, or some of the clubs that do manage to battle and stay up. I mean, there's not a huge amount of players that I would keep from that Norwich.
I think there's three I can think of off the top of my head. They got Max Aarons, the fullback, who's very good. Todd Cantwell, also a very good creative player. Pookie probably, yeah. I mean, he's kind of dropped off since the start. He had a really good start, but he's dropped off recently. So maybe he's going to be looking to get a few more goals before he has to drop down again. But no, they'll be up for it. Don't think for a second they're just going to roll over. They're going to play for a bit of pride now. They want to get as many points as they can still. That doesn't mean they're going to finish bottom just because they've been the first relegated. They could still get some points and climb up a little bit. But no, they'll be fully up for this game. They're not just going to roll over at all.
No, and exactly that point, I don't think Chelsea are ever going to enter this as a game that really is going to be playing. I think Cantwell's looking for a move to Sheff Utd. All of those sorts of players are going to want to play to showcase why they need to stay. It's been written in stone for a while now that they were going to go down They've been the only club that just don't look like they're able to compete to stay in the Premier League. So a lot of these players have been trying to showcase their individual performance to try and win these contracts. And I feel like you're going to see the exact same against Chelsea. There's an ability to do a bit of giant killer mentality of, right, we might have got relegated, but we beat Chelsea just before the end of the season, and I had this great performance and I scored a goal. But it's one I expect to win. As much as sort of we are probably negative at the moment in talking around how our performances are looking forward, I expect to win. To be honest, if I was to put sort of the money on us winning, and I know that really hasn't counted for much over the last couple of weeks, anyone can beat us and we can win any game. It really just depends on the luck of the draw, where the moon and stars.
It completely depends which Chelsea turn up, which team decide. If they decide to turn up and play, then we can riot. We could go and get 4, 5, 6. If we decide to turn up like we did on Saturday against Sheffield United, then we will lose the game. So we just need the team to turn up. I think we have to win. Firstly, it's that close with us now with Leicester and with United. It's too close, and we've thrown away too many points now against lesser opposition. Yeah. We have to win. And I think this, as you mentioned it earlier, we need to make a statement. We need to give ourselves that confidence boost going into the final 2 games, which are big games. I mean, the last 2 Premier League games we have, Liverpool and Wolves. So 2 very big games, tough games. And we need that confidence. We need that boost. And the other thing is it could go to goal difference. Like, it's that close. And, Leicester have lost 4-1 tonight. If we can go and, get a big win against Norwich, then we might be able to catch up a bit. So I think it is important we go out there and we get a good few goals.
As you say, it's going to be a big thing around who plays. So I think there's rumours that Kante could be back. There's rumours that Kovacic could be back, which would definitely be a big sort of win for us. I think, to be honest, I would love to see at least one of those players playing because I feel a lot more confidence when they're in the squad. And I think if we've got those there, you won't see too much change from the squad. I think he'll try and keep some of. I think there potentially could be Rudiger return to the position if Christensen's struggling, which he has been. But for me, I think if you can get that midfield right, give that defensive cover from the midfield, and I think Jorginho's got to be dropped. I don't think he's got it at the moment. I don't know why he hasn't been playing over the last couple of weeks. And obviously we've just had to start him out of pure necessity rather than anything else in the last game. I think it could be a big game. To be honest, if we're going to go for sort of picking sort of numbers on what we think there's going to be there, my gut is it's going to be a 4-0 Chelsea win. I think it's just going to be high scoring. If Frank's going to have to give them the hairdryer treatment after Sheffield United. He's going to tell them the fans are going to be demanding a big scoring game, and I feel they're going to need to come out and build a big performance. So I'm going to go bold with 4-0. What are your thoughts?
I think it very much depends on what team he plays, who he picks. I think for me, it'll either be he'll either do a 4-2-3-1 with Jorginho and Kovacic playing in the pivot, or he'll just go with Kovacic because I don't think he'll risk Kante on a game like this, which really we should be able to win without Kante. He'll probably save him for the United game. So I think you could see either the 4-2-3-1 or you'll see Kovacic playing at the back. I also would like to see Willian given a rest because he just looks exhausted. And also maybe Ruben. I think it would be good to give Ruben a start. I mean, he started that one game, the first game against Villa. He's obviously not fully at it yet, but I think Barkley and Mount have just played almost every single game and they need a rest as well. There's a lot of the players who have just been... our team's been very similar every game. And some players have played almost every minute. And then, with most of our games, I think we've only had 2 home games since the restart. All the other games have been away. So it's been, a lot of travel as well. So players are probably getting tired. It's not like a normal season where you've got a week between Premier League games. Like, it's all coming thick and fast. But no, score prediction, I'm gonna say 3-0 because every game has to have a 3 in it. So 3-0 to Chelsea this time.
You heard it here first. It's the 3 impacts. As soon as we've had the 3 logo go on our chest, there's been at least 3 goals by one team in a game in a Chelsea on any Chelsea game. Only a couple of times Chelsea have managed that. So Cookie there, I'm going to buck the trend with a 4. And then what I'll ask you to do next week, Jamie, is just do a 3+1 on your shirt, just to add to that. Then comes the difficult game. So Norwich, I'm not sort of downplaying how difficult that will be and how important it is, but the United game, so it's FA Cup. And I'm going to be gold here. I'm not that bothered if we don't get FA Cup. I mean, as much as I love a trophy, as much as any fan should, big one for me is this has been a building season. It'd be lovely to be at silverware home, but I would much rather stay in the top 4. And that probably says a lot for the modern game. I think sort of you go back 10, 15 years, people would rather win the FA Cup, hands down. But Champions League football means so much for a club now. The amount of revenue it comes in, the prestige it comes with playing with the top in Europe, and the ability to compete for better players and better and build your squad in a different way. It's imperative we keep that Champions League. So I know United's going to be a difficult game. They were the bane of our life in our first game proper back into the sort of Premier League with Frank, and I think they're going to be a thorn in our arse next week because they're in form. Their attacking is a bit frightening at the moment. And our defence.
I think what is going to be the biggest concern is the fact that we play a possession-based game where we like to keep hold of the ball and try and create the space. They play a counter-attack game where they'll soak up the pressure and they'll hit us with devastating effect. And look at yesterday. Like if we don't score first, then we're screwed, basically. And it depends which team turns up. I mean, if the team that played against City turns up, then we've got a chance. But the only thing is, obviously, they play in different styles, United and City, so it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to win. I mean, look at the first game of the season. We played really well. Like, I remember thinking we played really well, and we lost 4-0. So even if we turn up and play really well, a couple of defensive mistakes, and you're looking at another hiding. So I'm really not feeling confident about that game.
If you look at their final 4 games, obviously got Southampton tomorrow night or tonight if you're watching the podcast. Crystal Palace and West Ham, which, if I'm looking at the run of form that both those clubs are in, they might have an issue with West Ham, but I'd expect them to win it. And then they've got Leicester on the final game of the season, which huge. We mentioned this could be a big sort of end of the season. When we mentioned that a couple of weeks back, there was no ambition that it was actually going to get to this point. There was someone who was going to be running ahead of the pack, and then there would be everyone else. The pack is so tight between 6th and 3rd at the moment. I think it is going to be such an important game. There potentially could be the final game of the season could define 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
I think Wolves have kind of fallen down a little bit now. They've had a couple of bad results. I think they're
got another win today.
They're like 3 points behind now, I think, right?
So if I look at the league as it stands, so the league table currently is 35 games and 60 points for Chelsea with a goal difference of 14. 35 games and 59 points with 29 goals, positive goal difference for Leicester. 58 points for United, but a game in hand and 26 goal difference. And then Wolves are on 55. So they are quite a bit behind the pack in that perspective. But a good run of games, that could mean anything. So it's all to play for.
Yeah, I do think it will come down to Chelsea, United, and Leicester. The thing is, that's still in our hands. If we win all of our games, we are guaranteed to finish in the top 4 because of the fact that United and Leicester have got to play each other, and also the fact that Leicester dropped points today. Going back to the United game, I think it would be such a boost to beat them, like to knock them down a little bit before the final kind of run-in. If we dent their confidence by beating them, it could make a big difference, not just, to put us into the final of the FA Cup, but to how they're playing in the Premier League. They have to then go to West Ham. They've got to play against West Ham, and then they've got Leicester. So they're 2 games that, they could drop points in if we knock that confidence. Otherwise, they're going to go through and steamroll both of them.
Yeah.
So whilst, maybe we're looking at the top 4 as being more important than the FA Cup, I think just the fact that we can beat them, especially considering they've beaten us 3 times already this season, it would just be so good to beat them as a fan, just as a one-off game, but also with the hope that it has a knock-on effect for the rest of their season. I think it could be huge in that aspect as well.
Yeah, massive. So, Chelsea fans, thank you for another brilliant weekend at Chelsea Chat with me, Moose, and JB. Once again, please subscribe, hit the bell notification, and smash the like button, and comment below on anything you guys want to hear more from us, want to hear more around Bulldogs, anything you want to hear, comment below. We're happy to sort of talk through some of those bits and pieces, and equally we'll tune in next week and listen to us on social media. We're quite vocal there, as we are here. So look forward to catching you next weekend. You stay classy, Chelsea fans.